Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So I have another client tutorial for you guys. This is small eye friendly. Alright, jumping right into the face, I am taking my Cloud Complexion Primer from XX Revolution, and I'm just using a brush from Real Techniques to go all over. So during this day, it was a lot going on. I was doing her makeup and there was a hairstylist there as well. As you can see, we were tag teaming because we were in a hurry. So I am color correcting with an orange corrector from LA Girl, just going all over her face. And to throw a disclaimer out here, I did get approval for this next clip. It's a cute little blooper that I thought would be nice to include so you guys can chuckle.
So she's the friend that thinks out of the box and puts stuff together and it looks amazing. I forgot to shave my mustache.
Yeah, you want to do that real fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh!
All right, now that that's out the way and we're back to our regular scheduled program, I am taking the shade Medium Beige to cover the orange corrector. Oh, and I do have to apologize about the camera. I did not know that it was lopsided, so I do apologize about that. I'm mad at myself about that, but it's okay. So I'm taking my sponge and I'm just making sure that the concealer is blended in well with her skin, so when I put on her foundation, nothing will show through. So the foundation that I'm using today is from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I can't remember the shade name, but I will definitely leave it in the description box down below. So if you guys are her shade, then you can use her as a color reference. So I am just patting it in with my brush, and I do go back over with a sponge. Now this is my first time working with or doing makeup with a frontal in the way, so I really had to like take my time around the edges and make sure that it looks natural and not crazy. So I took my time around the edges and I made sure that I blended that foundation into the edge of her frontal. To contour her face, I am taking the LA Girl Pro Concealer in Toast to sculpt her face. I dipped my brow into the shade that's on the back of my hand because I didn't want to go super heavy because she is a light client of mine. Excuse me. She is a light client. So I'm just making sure that I am tapping that in and using the lightest hand possible because I can go heavy-handed on accident. So I am making sure that I chisel out her cheekbones and her jawline, and I can't forget the forehead. Don't forget the forehead, ladies and gents. I went in with the contour brush that I used for her cheeks, and then I went in with a brush to really diffuse it up into her eyebrow and then down the bridge of her nose to make it a natural snatched look. and then going back in with my sponge to make sure that everything is blended together, making sure that the contour shade is melted nice and melted into her into her frontal seamlessly. So the highlighter shade that I'm using, this is medium beige, I believe. If that's not the right shade, then I will definitely leave it in the description box. So I'm using a brush at first to place the product down, and then I go in with my sponge to diffuse it. For powder, I am taking the CoverGirl True Blend Minerals in Banana to set the center of her face and all the places that I highlighted. And while that is sitting on her face, I went into my Wet n Wild bronzer. I believe it's called Sunkiss. Check the description box once again to get the correct name. And I just bronzed her face. And while I was going from section to section, I just make sure that I brushed off the excess powder that I use to make sure that they are really like blended into each other and melted in. And once I'm done setting the face with the powders, I take a setting spray to make sure that everything is melted in, and then dabbing it with my sponge. So this is what the base is looking like. So let's move on to the eyes. So the palette that I'm using today, this is the Extravaganza palette from XX Revolution, and I took two different shades for her transition. I took a yellow shade and a light green shade, and I mixed those two together, and I'm just placing it onto her lid and using small circular motions for the transition. So I only did one eye on camera just to save some time. So I'm just building up those shades that I used for her transition because I wanted her eyes to pop. So I went ahead and put some powder underneath her eye for the fallout because I am using a lot of greens and I don't want them to stain her face. So I took two different shades of green for the next layer of colors for her halo. So I took a light green and a darker, lighter green, and I just dabbed it from the outside to the inside and then blended it together in a oval half moon shape. Now I did go back into these shades because I really wanted these colors to stand out. So if you do decide to recreate this look, just take your time on building up these shades. So the next shade that I'm using, it's the darkest green in the palette, and I mixed it with the black shade to get this mauvey dark green shade, and I just blended it on top of that lighter green shade to have the shadow for the halo. As I'm going along with the eye, I am picking up those same brushes that I used prior to putting on the darker shades to make sure that they don't get lost in transition. And I'm using a smaller blending brush to make sure that those colors are blending into each other and that the lines aren't so harsh. Since she does have a small eye, I wanted to make sure that these colors are visible when her eyes are open and gives that sultry, seductive look. So to cut the halo, I am using a white concealer from LA Girl, and I'm just dabbing it on and making a half circle. I really took my time with this one because I wanted the circle to be perfect. And since she has a smaller eye, like I said before, I wanted those colors to show. So that's why I'm just taking up as much space as I can without doing way too much where the colors start looking crazy or they really do get lost. So once I'm done with placing that concealer on top of her eye, I did take my sponge to dab the excess concealer off so the base will be tacky and dry enough for the colors that I'm going to use for the halo. So the colors that I'm using are the same exact shades that I used for the transition. So I am taking that green black shade and diffusing the edges, and then I take the other green on the inner outer part. And then taking that lighter shade of green and just blending that on top of the green black shade that I previously used. And I'm just using a small space so the middle of the halo is still available for the next shade that I'm going to use. And making sure that I use that same small blending brush to blend those two shades together. Going back into the Extravaganza palette, I took the green shimmer shade that's inside and I just placed it on the center of the lid as a base because I am going to use another shade. The next shimmer shade that I'm using, this is from the Ultimate Utopia from NYX, and it's a lighter shimmer shade, and I just dabbed it on top of the previous shimmer that I used, and it just did the trick for me, okay? So I'm taking a black liner to tight line her eye, so when I put on the lashes, there won't be an obvious gap in between, if that makes sense. So the lashes that I used are from the Dollar Lash Club in Sabrina. So I just cut it to fit her eye shape, and I just love these lashes with this look. They did it for me, okay? So for her lower lash line, I'm just taking the same exact colors from the top that I used, and then I'm just placing it, excuse me, cannot talk, placing it at the bottom. And then blending those shades together. I didn't want to smoke out her lower lash too much because I didn't want her eyes to get lost. So that's why I took those shimmer shades again and I just placed it right below the halo part so her eyes can still shimmer from both ways. So the blush that I'm using today is from XX Revolution in the shade Cliche. It just gave her the perfect wash of color and I just love it. And this is the highlighter Reloaded in Dare to Divulge. So this is what the face is looking like so far. So let's move on to the lips. So for her lips, I took a brown eyeshadow. I didn't have a brown lip liner, so your girl had to improvise and I had to make some shake and I did it and it looked so good. So the lip gloss that I'm using is from Maybelline. This is the Lifter Gloss in Stone, I believe. So I just placed that down first and I really took my time for the lips because the lips are very hard, you guys. Like for me, people say that eyebrows are hard to do, but no, lips are hard to do. So I really took my time in placing that color down and making sure that everything looked right. And then to top that off, I took it's another gloss, I cannot remember the name. It's from NYX and it's called Brunch Drunk. That's the shade name. The actual name of the lip gloss will be in the description box below. So I just placed that on top to give it a little bit of more shimmer because it does have glitter in it. So this wraps up today's video. If you liked what you saw, then give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure that you like, comment, and you are subscribed. And I hope I get to see you guys in the next one. Bye.